Welcome back everyone, this is Crimson Blades and today we're going to be checking out a game called Yaengard. I believe that's how it's pronounced. This game is something that's been on my wish list for quite a while, and it's an interesting turn-based party RPG inspired by games like Dungeons and Dragons. And the idea of it is that you're playing for people with unassuming backgrounds, peasants, blacksmiths, people that are not accustomed to war, that have been thrust into this sort of a campaign against a larger force. And essentially what drew me to the game is that as you are playing, you start to make decisions for these characters which build a sort of personality for them. There's a whole trait system and class system that is built around the kinds of weapons you equip for them, and the more they are drawn towards a certain personality trait, the more they are better at doing making decisions essentially that is tied around those skills. So I wanted to demonstrate what the game is like for you today. It's a bit of a first look video, and hopefully you enjoy this look, and if you enjoy the game, pick it up from Steam. Right off the bat, there are a ton of different play styles that are available to you. There's the 3 different difficulty types that give you a sense of, if you're really the kind of person that wants to go for a hugely challenging game, there's challenges that you can attempt to do throughout the game if you want to kind of build up that level of giving you that sense of challenge essentially. And then there's these unspoken modes which are gradually get harder and harder, but you'll need to beat the level before it to unlock those. We're just going to play normal to demonstrate the game. And you start off by essentially making your characters, so you're customizing them. Every background, if you noticed here, you can even click it, or you could just manually go left to right. But if you click it, you'll notice that there's so many different backgrounds. There's variability from the perspective of the kind of abilities they start with. And I'll walk you through the different stats in a little bit when we have a different screen that I could show you what each one does. So I'm beyond the background of the character there, you also have their personalities up front. So these are the kind of personalities each character has, and you'll notice that each one is opposite from the other, and you don't want to, they're sort of on a spectrum, on a scale, and you don't want to counterbalance it. You want to stick to one sort of personality and push your way through that to just stick to, in a sense, law accurate themes here, but we'll get into that in a little bit more. The last little bit down here is just some added skills that the characters may have, and you can select those too. So as usual, we're going back to our group of bootleg Lord of the Rings guys, Grimly, Aragraum and Gandalf. This is just some general, I wanted with a bit of variability with the abilities, so you'll get to appreciate some changes there, and you'll get to appreciate what it looks like. So, the overview, think about games like Slay the Spire, where you have a bit of a direction in terms of what you want to choose. So, in the initial piece, it tells you what's on the left here, and there's some story nodes like this letter, which we'll go to right now. So I'm not going to showcase the entire story, but I'll do the opening piece here. One could ask why 3 Heartlanders would stay awake this long after work has ended, and so close to work beginning anew. The answer would be found in the letter resting next to the warm firelight in their home. The messenger said it came from north, from Yaengard. From outside the Heartlands? That was strange, as none of the 3 had ever heard of someone leaving the Heartlands. It gets worse. Together the 3 of them begin to read the letter. All Heartlanders are family, that is why I did what I did. The unspoken of Yaengard have ruled over us for hundreds of years of oppression, of pain, of faithlessness. The Baroness of Blood, Falira, rules the Heartlands in the name of Yaengard. Her tax collectors, the breath takers, ensure that no Heartlanders rest nor hope. For without faith, Yaengard would rule forever. I had to end it, but I failed. With this letter there is hope. I included the map I used to find my way here. This is where my journey ends, and where yours must begin. There is a church, a hidden one, a church that remembers hope and prosperity. the Church of the Fourth Well still remembers the long-forgotten age of adventurers. The unspoken of Yaengard took adventurers from us. Become what they were. Find the church, bring Falira down, escape the heartlands through the gates of silence. Save your home, and if you fail, make sure that there will be others to walk in your footsteps. The letter is signed, all Heartlanders are family. Go adventure, adventures to be. Your time has arrived, old man. Tell us who helped you through the gates of silence. Do it, and I'll allow you to die quickly. Putting down the letter, you are interrupted by a hostile voice from outside your home. Come out there, by order of Falira and the Baroness of Blood. Alright, so let me walk you through a little bit in terms of the UI. So, when the game poses you a situation like this, where there is a description in the top right, they'll often give you options in the bottom here. Some of them will be multiple different options, and they'll all have the effect. So what flavor text is mentioned up here, which tells you what exactly is sort of happening. The results of what you're doing is mentioned down here. Items. So in this context, a bunch of people have come to collect access. By clicking this, I'm going to start combat, and we're going to pick some items. What matters about the active character, if you notice up here, is that you select the character that is going to make this decision on the right. Once they make that decision, they lose one of these three, a stamina point that they have. If a character picks a card, they lose a stamina. So you want to sort of balance it out, because if a character runs out of stamina completely, they are a little bit weaker in combat. So if Grimly makes this decision right now, and you notice that happens, I should kind of balance out my decisions moving forward. There is a way to regain this, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Alright, so this is the next little bit. So now I get to equip my characters. These are the starting items that I'm choosing for these characters. Sometimes you see there's a chain between two, meaning you can pick one or the other. Now while I'm on this page, I'm just going to talk to you briefly about how the layout of the perks and so on look. So when you select this is the equipment, stash, etc. There's 6 skills here. So power is how much damage you're essentially dealing, and the initiative that you have. But it's sort of counterbalanced by toughness. So this is the amount of health you will have, but it lowers your initiative. So putting points in them, you sort of want to find a good balance. Same goes with intelligence and ancestry. So intelligence is the likelihood, the amount of critical strike damage that you're going to be doing, and something called creativity, which is the percentage of doing unique ability with your weapon. So I'm just going to have a quick look here. So unfortunately they don't have weapons right now that I can demonstrate that, but certain weapons have a sort of a creativity percentage chance to do an extra effect. Ancestry is certain weapons have this sort of essentially like burn damage and that kind of damage that goes through ancestry mastery in terms of to deal those damage. And there's a chance you can heal a bit of health at the start of your turn based on how much ancestry you have. Agility is the ability to dodge and the chance of dealing a critical strike. Also a minor effect on weapon and ancestral damage. And finally, talent is purely into creativity. It's a bigger point into your ability to use weapons for its extra actions. And all of that's broken down here. Each character is a little bit different. You can just scroll through them that way. Perks, this tells you what they start with, and as you're playing they'll develop more skills and perks. And this is the last thing that I wanted to show you, the traits. Remember I told you certain characters they'll start to shift in a certain spectrum here. So honest versus deceitful. The more you go into these, like you're heading towards the honest side, you're going to develop these added perks and benefits. And if you start to make decisions that you shouldn't be making for this character because he's an honest person, and I start making deceitful actions, I start losing those abilities because I'm going in the wrong direction essentially. So it's about balance to a degree. Alright, so combat, everyone has one movement action and one attack action. So they are happening in this square grid. So I'm going to move my character once there, and these characters are going to move in melee range. So moving here doesn't make sense. I can spend my combat action, meaning my attack action now, to move again, but I'm just going to end my turn. Same goes with everyone. I'm just going to move there and end my turn because I know that they are going to move once or move twice. And if they have range, they can move and throw a ranged attack in. And so this person comes in. So from here, I can do an attack first and move, or move and attack. So I'm actually going to move to the back line here and try and take out that ranged unit. So this character has a action that allows him to attack twice. But once again, I moved, I attacked, that's it, turn end. So it's trying to keep things simple. I can move out of here and attack this character. That this ability allows him to deal damage and apply a burn damage per turn. And here I can also do this, burn him, and I can move into this region. Yeah, let's do that for now. Alright, so this is on cooldown. You can see CD2 it says there. So I'm just going to hit him with a basic attack. Just left clicking him will deal a basic attack. And my turn. You're going to move, blast him with that, and return. So the combat is simple in some regards, but things get a little bit more complex the more you play, because you start to develop unique abilities based around the weapons you are possessing. And this is it. Once you finish a combat, this is part of the story right now. But essentially at the end of it, there'll be some form of a reward. In this case, you'll notice that I jumped ahead a little bit in the story there, but there was some debate on whether they did the right thing in fighting these guards. And so here you sort of make this decision. Again, remember, you want to kind of balance out the stamina points, but you're going to make a decision that will affect how these people's characteristics are. So again, trait wise, you can always right click them, have a look here again to remind yourself. So you're looking at self-serving, faithful, or noble, and I'm looking around here. You can start it in somebody, or you could just pick one right now. So none of my characters actually have any of these skills. So if somebody was noble, I'd probably push more points into it. But let's say right now I point at the item, it says noble, there's power, ancestry, etc. So I could just switch to Grand Elf here and be, you know what, I'm going to give him noble too, because there's some ancestry buff that's coming and he does ancestral damage. And slowly we will develop more. And there you go. So in terms of a reward directly, they tell me that I got this perk skill called kindness. And let me just see if that pops up, right? It pops up here as a skill. So it gives you a noble 2, which matters because certain events that you come across might require you to use those skills. Now remember earlier I mentioned that there will be ways to regain your stamina. So right now there's no rush to do it, because each time you try to regain your stamina, the game gets a little bit harder. So the Slay the Spire-esque style of breaking down the route you're gonna go is here. So I could go for a combat right now, or I could go for a different encounter that might reward me with different rewards, but they make use of personality traits that my characters have. Combat is the best way to actually get good loot for fighting, and then experience as well. Sort of comes with anything you do. Any of those card choices you saw me do earlier, when you pick a card choice, you start to get experience here for the entire party, and once they all get experience, they would be able to level up as a group. So if I'm low on stamina, all I have to do is click this button, find an inn, and after my next encounter there'll be an inn option, and there I can rest up. But I'll play a little bit more and show you how that looks like. So here we've come across a hostile group of farmers that's in the bridge and refusing to pass. So you got a few options here. So you notice that there's straightforward options which just says engage the enemy, start combat. So even picking this card will result in the active character losing a stamina and the team getting an experience. Or I could make things a little bit more challenging for me and say, hey, I want to allow the enemies to have extra armor as a challenge, but in terms of a reward, I'll get an extra crossbow as a reward for the fight. Alternatively, I could choose the option to flee. Now, you'll notice a percentage here and a success and fail that's a little bit different. The reason for that is it is taking into account the agility skill of the active character. So if I move it around, so it's a bad example here because everybody's agility is 1, is it? Is this a great old coincidence? Yes. But normally this number would change depending on the active character's agility. What it means is you actually need to, this is a dice roll essentially, and you actually need to roll a number that is smaller than 39% essentially. And that's, it's tough. So the higher your skill point is, if my agility was 10 or something, the percentage here would be 90%, and it's easy for me to roll a number below that. So what that means is I will be able to get this card without expending a stamina, which is great. But if I fail it, I lose all my stamina. So it is, it's a risk-reward sort of piece here, but often the reward is pretty good. So in this case, let's just kind of up the risk and get a crossbow. So I engage the enemy. I get the crossbow up front. So I would put this. So looking at it, there's no real necessarily strict rule in who you need to put this on. I would probably still put it on Aragraum to give him a little bit of options in terms of attack styles. What I will say though is you'll notice that even at the get-go, you see Deceitful Peasant, if you start to apply weapons to him, they start to change their class. Later on in the game, the characters will actually have a unique ability tied to that class. So it was a tough fight, but we managed to make do. We did lose Aragraum in that fight. And losing a character, it's not detrimental. It only depends on the circumstance of the difficulty that you're having, I believe. So now let's try out one of these diverse rewards trait events. Crossing with the Heartlands farm, you hear an accursed growling. Help! I'm surrounded! Undeads on the farm! Help! So sometimes when you pick these, it does result in a combat as well, but it all depends on what the random event is. Alright, so you'll notice that when they level up, they'll actually have this little +2 on them, right click them, and you can sync these points however you like into the character. So for example, Grimly here, I'm going to put him power and toughness up. Ragraum, maybe I'm going to go with some agility and talent. Grandalf will just keep his magic up, so ancestral and intelligence. And we'll just keep powering through. Now you'll notice that a lot of them have really low stamina at this point, so I'm going to click the find in and I'm just going to pick a event, and then after this you'll notice the in pop up. Okay, so now a tutorial just popped up here to just let me know something else that is useful to mention as well. Now that inns have essentially been unlocked in a sense, the first time we're visiting an inn, we'll regain our maximum HP, we'll get back all our stamina, but we'll also get this thing called Destiny. That's these 3 little icons on top of each character. They are resources essentially that you can spend in combat to get an extra action. So you can attack twice in a row or 3 times in a row. The only thing is you need to go to an inn again to regain those Destiny points. So let's go to inn. This is how it would look like. So in an inn, you regain everything, just like I mentioned. It gives you a quick line on what your main quest is currently. You'll notice up here though, the enemy might. The thing is, every day you rest at an inn, a day passes and the enemy gets slightly stronger. So you want to be careful about how much you are resting at an inn. So balancing out who does what skills can actually buy you more time before you actually hit this, have to come back to an inn. So here's another interesting event where they basically have found a little patch in the ground that they are trying to dig up for treasure, for example. you could look at the stats on these items. You'll notice that, for example, Aragraum would have a better chance at using his talent here, 50%. The others would have 20. But power here, in terms of using Grimly's power to kind of dig through and find a treasure, we'll use his. Let's see if it works. Yeah, success. We roll less than 72. And then it'll give you a sense of what you found. So farming site. No, wait, no. Farming site is used. The treasure that you found is a storm bolt. And so we'll give that to Grand Elf, but we'll also notice that we've leveled up again. So again, you could probably spread this around more. I'm sticking to them because, just like what you saw, certain events make use of certain characters' skills, and so I want to be able to diversify the group a little bit so that each one of them can do a certain task a little bit more efficiently. Now, every so often you will come across trinkets like this. Now, trinkets are unique because they give you both a good benefit and a negative benefit, so blessing and a curse. And so picking the appropriate one for your character may be ideal. So you gotta just kind of balance it out and figure out who needs what. Of course, you can also just ignore it and leave it here, and you would lose the trinket, but they're usually pretty strong, so it's best to go with it. Of course, we run a fowl with a bunch of enemies. I will say the layout and how the landscape looks is very well done. You know, some of these combats just really kind of sucks you into that interesting sort of peasantry countryside setting. Some status effects are unique. Frost, for example, will reduce enemies' damage. Burn would be able to cause them damage over time. Storm, this is new to me as well. Abilities copied to all characters already stormed. Okay. So you can kind of spread storm to other characters. Alright, and for example, if now I've used up this character's action, if I press this button here, it just gives me a destiny and I can throw another shot at someone. And you'll notice some items in the game have a certain rarity, like this. It says item rare. So for example, it's just sort of an upgrade for certain items, and you know, if you're fortunate, you'll get some pretty good stuff. And we have pushed ourselves to a higher level, so hence we're unlocking items that are of higher quality. Alright, finally, this is the final fight that I'll show you. And I brought you here because this is the second portion of the main story that will take you to your characters finally developing their traits and personalities enough that they have a class. So they're no longer peasants anymore. So let me show you what I mean by that. So now that now that I have the characters here, for example, Grimly here is a warden because he has both an axe and a shield. And if for example, when I didn't have the shield, it wasn't a warden. The warden's ability allows him to be able to use this ability, inflict 4 frost to all enemies within his trial, and can't be avoided. Aragraum, for example, because he has both a candle and a crossbow, he has this sort of mesh of the two to make this special ability where he gets this special range attack that results in some negative effects on other characters. And Grandel, for example, he has this storm and burn weapons, and he gets this crescendo attack where he can target an enemy with lots of damage if they have both burning and frost active at once, which we are able to do on certain characters here. We may even be able to pull it off here, so let's have a look here and see how this goes. So let's bring Grimly in there. We apply frost to this character, and so we can't hit him, for example, but remember we can just use our destiny and then deal damage to him and his turn, and he can apply burn to this character. So he has both burn and frost like we discussed earlier. Again, I'll use this. I'll even shoot him with this. and then end his turn. And finally, Grandalf, because this enemy has both burning and frost, he can do this. So it's some synergy between your characters, a ton of damage like we saw there, which, can I do it again? Oh no, I guess not. I guess I could keep just blasting him. But yes, I'll finish up this fight and I'll talk to you a little bit more. So finally, I wanted to show you an example of what I just mentioned. So let's say I got a reward of this shield here. Warden ability, right? 4 damage to all enemies. If I switch his axe with this, he becomes Protector. 2 shields is essentially carrying. He's able to transfer his negative status to other people. So let's say I drop that and I decide, hey Aragraum, I don't really want you to be a depth hunter. I'm gonna switch this out, and now he's suddenly a sentinel. He's able to taunt. Can I see, what does this do? Look at that. So Eye of the Storm, storm to all enemies attacked. There's so much variability which makes it really interesting, and there's some of it which is a bit of an overlap, but I think that is purely because it takes into account the kind of weapon you're carrying as well. Overall, let me give you my final thoughts here. I'll take us back to the menu screen. Overall, I think this game is absolutely fantastic. It is so much fun because you really get to play around with the characters themselves. You know, a lot of these games, people start off as huge fighters and you're just leveling them up in a very generic RPG style. The more you fight, the more XP you get. In this case, you almost develop personalities for the characters, and in addition to that, it's fun. It's, you know, it doesn't feel like a slog to do combat. It doesn't feel like too difficult. There's obviously challenges in the game that are exceeding what you're capable of, but that is likely because you sort of rushed into it. Taking too many rests in the inn, for example, does, and not optimizing your play, does make enemies have an advantage against you. So there's a lot of interesting ways to play the game, and I think replayability is extremely high in the game. I think it looks beautiful, the music is great, the environments are great. I like that, you know, because there's so much variability in the random events and the people you fight and the decisions you make and the dice rolls that you have, that this game will be a game that I'll be coming back to again and again. I hope you've enjoyed this first look. I know it's a bit of a longer video, but I hope you it's hopefully opened your eyes in order to consider getting the game yourself. Thank you very much for taking the time. As usual, like and subscribe. I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.